We're inching closer and closer by the minute, closer and closer by the hour as we inch closer to the 2018 NFL Draft. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. My name is Ryan Thomas. You're tuning into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast live on the Thomas Take YouTube channel. I'm repping my UFC tonight, but this is the NFL Draft podcast episode. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the love and support that I've been getting from all of the viewers and listeners that have been tuning into the show. I want to preface my picks here by stating that these picks and the order of the draft, my mock draft, I feature no trades in my mock draft. So I want to preface my statements by saying there'll be no trades in this first round mock. Every team that is picking in the first round of this mock draft, their pick is the same exact pick, that they will have. There won't be any trades. As I adjust my shirt here. Sorry about that. So to say the least, no trades for any Bills fans that are watching this that are expecting me to come up with this crazy trade scenario. I am guessing each pick where it lies. So no trade up to first overall, no trade up to second overall, no trade up to third overall, yada, 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 you get it. So let's get started. This is a very entertaining draft, one that I've followed very closely, one that I've watched a lot of game tape on a lot of these players, especially the quarterbacks, spent a lot of time putting together positional rankings and really tweaking those rankings throughout this entire process. And I posted my rankings at every position today on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page. You can read those, check those out by liking the page and obviously supporting the show. Throw out a like for the show on the page, and be more than happy to interact with you and any questions that you might have. In the coming weeks, months, years. However long you guys decide, however long you want to tune into the show. So it's been very fun. This April has been a great month for the show. Done very good numbers. Been very happy with how things have turned out, how things have panned out for the show. Changing it to a visual podcast, I think, was very much needed, and allow me to communicate with the audience in a newfound way. So. I'm coming to you live Friday night. I will be departing shortly, probably around 9:30, but I'm going to try to keep this, as good as I can in terms of the coverage that I give you. So let's get right to it. The first overall pick is the Cleveland Browns. They've had a lot of bad seasons this last decade. They now currently own the longest playoff drought in the National Football League. They've made some moves. They've made some headlines. They traded for former Buffalo Bills starting quarterback Tyrod Taylor, sending a third-round pick, the first overall pick in the third round to Buffalo, as well as trading a fourth and a sixth-round draft choice to the Miami Dolphins in return for Jarvis Landry, who they have also made headlines by extending to a 5-year deal. I thought that was a very good deal, actually, for the Cleveland Browns, and a great deal for Jarvis Landry. It allows him to kind of stay available, or to stay unavailable and stay paid, which is what he wanted. He wanted to sign long-term somewhere. He wanted to sign to a team that wanted him, that wanted to show that they wanted him, and the Cleveland Browns have done that. So not only have the Cleveland Browns had some reinforcements, they have had some losses. Joe Thomas is now retired. That's a hole. That's a guy that I think will be in Canton one day in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's a hole indeed that I think Cleveland is going to have to fill. Whether it's in the first round or not remains to be seen, and I will go through that. So first overall, although they do have Tyrod Taylor in tow, everyone knows my take on Tyrod being that I've been a Buffalo Bills fan my entire life. I know a lot about Tyrod, watching Tyrod, his strengths, his weaknesses, the things that make him great, the things that make him so and mediocre. I would still like to think that Cleveland has to go quarterback here, but the real question is, do they go with Sam Darnold or do they go with Saquon Barkley? I think it comes down to actually three players: Sam Darnold, Saquon Barkley and Josh Rosen, not Josh Allen. I know that there's been a lot of crazy rumors as far as Josh Allen going first overall. I do not see that happening at all. I see the choice being between Sam Darnold, Barkley, and Josh Rosen. And ultimately, I think the Browns will take Sam Darnold first overall. You look at his scouting report, he has the ideal NFL size, 6'3", 220. He's a pocket passer, a pure pocket passer, trusts the pocket, keeps his eyes down the field, looks to extend the play. And Tyrod Taylor's not the answer. And Tyrod Taylor isn't old by any stretch of the imagination, but he's 30. He's a pure definition of a bridge quarterback. So first overall, I got the Cleveland Browns going with USC quarterback Sam Darnold, which would leave the New York Giants with a real great scenario coming off a lost season where the team, I think, is much better than what the record showed last year. A terrible coach, a deplorable, deplorable human being as a head coach, in my opinion, and Ben McAdoo. Odell Beckham lost for the season. A lot of offensive linemen lost for the season for the Giants, offensive pieces, defensive pieces. It was just a terrible year. And I think they really need that extra weapon in their offense to help Eli Manning, to make Eli Manning better, to make Eli Manning the quarterback that they know he can be. And that would leave me to the Giants taking the best player, I think, in this draft, the number one overall player in the 2018 NFL draft, and that is Saquon Barkley out of Penn State. There's been a lot of great running backs coming out of college. Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Christian McCaffrey, to name a few. And I think Saquon Barkley potentially could be better than all of them. And that says a lot. And I think that that's a great fit. The New York Jets moved up from 6th overall with the Indianapolis Colts. They made a deal with the Colts, and they moved from 6th to 3rd. That would leave another quarterback on the board for the New York Jets. And this is going to be a real interesting story as we move closer to the NFL draft, but a real interesting story indeed. I think it's going to lead to the Jets taking Josh Rosen, 3rd overall out of UCLA. Rosen, a guy that is seen as the most polished passer in this class, prototypical quarterback, a guy that can throw with ease, a guy that can make things happen. I got Rosen going 3rd to the Jets, which would leave the Browns picking 4th overall. Imagine this. The Browns got 2 picks inside the top 4. They get the quote-unquote best quarterback in the class considered by many in Sam Darnold, and they get the best pass rusher 2 years in a row in 2 separate drafts. Myles Garrett last year, the 1st overall selection, and Bradley Chubb getting picked 4th overall out of NC State. NC State is known to have some damn good pass rushers in years past, Mario Williams being one of them. Bradley Chubb, I think, would be a good pick there for the Cleveland Browns. 5th overall, the Denver Broncos. If you were to go on any site that would list the Broncos' top needs, it would actually be offensive line. And there's an offensive lineman in this year's draft that I know quite a bit about, and that would be Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. I've never seen a better run blocker, a better pass blocker come out of the draft as an offensive lineman than Quentin Nelson in the last 10 years. I think Quentin Nelson can be very good and would definitely help the Denver Broncos offensive line. That would leave the Colts, who would have probably picked Quentin Nelson at that pick, to take the best linebacker in the draft, which is their second biggest need. That is Tremaine Edmunds. I really love Tremaine Edmunds. He's a player that I've linked to Buffalo quite often, but his stock has risen post-combine. So I'm going to go with Edmunds there at 6th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. 7th overall, you look at what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. You look at what they don't have. They don't have a guy like Vita Vea. Vita Vea is the best, one of the best defensive prospects in this draft. 6'4", 347 pounds, can move along any position along the defensive line and has all the ability in the world to really be something special. 8th overall, the Bears got to get back to basics, get back to a stout defense, and coming off the Edmonds pick to the Colts, coming off the Bucks pick to take Vita Vea. The Bears take the second best linebacker in the class, some consider to be the best linebacker in the class, and that is Roquan Smith out of Georgia, 9th overall. I have a hunch that John Lynch has watched some tape on this prospect, and this is where things can get really interesting. He's watched some tape on this prospect. I think it could go 9 or 10, could go either way, and it's funny because the 49ers and the Raiders, who picked 9 and 10, coin tossed for those picks. And I think this could go either way. Both of these players could be a fit in these two respective franchises. I do have Derwin James out of Florida State University going to the San Francisco 49ers. I love this player. He's a multifaceted player. He's a real immediate impact guy. And I think he could go to the Niners. Minkah Fitzpatrick from Bama would then fall to the Raiders at 10. Which would leave Miami. Miami is in a very unique situation, a very unfortunate situation with Ryan Tannehill. They do not know what's going to happen with him in terms of how he's going to react coming off of this injury. I don't either. And as a football fan, I'm very interested in that storyline and the fact that they didn't necessarily get an adequate backup for him. Brock Osweiler, we all know how he has panned out in his National Football League career. Brock Osweiler is not a starter. So could Miami be looking at the quarterback position for the sake of the mock draft, for the sake of some fun? I'm going to say that they are, and I'm going to say 11th overall. 11th overall, the Miami Dolphins select Baker Mayfield with the 11th overall pick. I think that could potentially happen. Leaving the Buffalo Bills at 12th overall. And this is the pick that my viewer base has been waiting for. They love to know when I'm going to talk about the Buffalo Bills. Well, I got to get through the other 11 teams first. And Buffalo the fans have been clamoring for Buffalo to trade up and get a quarterback and make something happen there. And, maybe move up to 2, maybe move up to 5, as I've alluded to. And now Denver has let it be known that they really want to trade the 5th overall pick. The Colts have let it be known that they might want to trade down again, which I've alluded to that as well. I'm going to say for the sake of this mock that there's no trades. Let's just say that everybody stays where they are. Buffalo knows off the board is Darnold, Rosen, and Mayfield, 3 quarterbacks off the board. Buffalo does not tip their toes in the quarterback waters here at 12th overall. They dip their toes at a position on their roster that needs a lot of work, and that is the wide receiver position. Hear me out here. You got Kelvin Benjamin, who's one knee injury away from basically having a career-ending injury. You have Zay Jones, who off the field had some issues this past offseason. If I am general manager Brandon Beane, and I know people are going to disagree with me on this, but I'm taking the best player available. And the best player available, regardless of position, at 12th overall, is Calvin Ridley, University of Alabama. The overview written by Lance Zierlein of NFL.com. Smooth strider with effortless transitions, dominates corners if they allow him free release. Speed is consistent in drive phase for short, intermediate, and deep routes. Feet are crisp and hypnotic. Yada, 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 basically saying that he's the best wide receiver in this draft. Now, I know Bills fans are going to say we don't want to draft a wide receiver that high again. We got Sammy Watkins a few years ago, and that did not turn out. That didn't turn out for a wide variety of reasons. That was then. This is now. I think Sammy didn't turn out because they traded a first-round pick essentially to get him, and that was not a good idea to do that. They didn't need to do that. As my cat's freaking out here. Calvin Ridley, I think, at 12 is where he belongs. He definitely belongs in the 12 to 20 range if I'm looking at where he could go. I really think that Calvin Ridley potentially can be one of the top 5 players in this draft based on my overall quote-unquote big board. Calvin Ridley is the guy that I really like, which obviously in this mock draft, as I've alluded to, this would mean that Buffalo would still have their 22nd overall pick, and I'll get to that as we get closer to it. The Washington Redskins have some needs there. You know, obviously you want to surround Alex Smith with as many weapons as he can possibly get, but I think building on a strength, you have Josh Norman in the building. I think building on a strength, drafting Denzel Ward 13th overall out of the Ohio State would really help Washington's secondary and allow them to expand their defense in ways that they never thought they could. The Green Bay Packers taking Josh Jackson 14th overall. Jackson's a guy that I ranked 5th today in my cornerback rankings, but I think this is such a good corner class that Mike Hughes is a guy that I really like, and Josh Jackson's a guy that I really like. But I'm going on NFL.com's grading as well as scheme in the case of the Green Bay Packers. 15th overall, the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they added a quarterback this offseason in Sam Bradford, but I don't think any Arizona Cardinals fan was excited about the idea of them having Sam Bradford as their starter. But that does mean that he could be their starter in the short term, and he could be the starter in the short term, and the next man that could take the spot be Wyoming quarterback Josh Allen, going to the Arizona Cardinals 15th overall. 16th overall, Leighton Vander Esch to the Baltimore Ravens. 17th overall, Rashaan Evans out of Alabama. 18th overall, Taven Bryan. 19th overall, Daron Payne going to the Cowboys. 18th overall, Taven Bryan going to Seattle. Darius Geis going to the Detroit Lions, a running back that I really like. Running back that I think people are sleeping on. 21st overall, Harold Landry, outside linebacker. And then 22nd overall, we have today Darnold to Cleveland. We have Rosen to the Jets. We have Mayfield to Miami. We have Josh Allen to Arizona. Buffalo would need to take a quarterback in this position, granted, if there are no trades. The quarterback that I think would be best suited for Buffalo at this pick, based on what Buffalo is looking for, is Oklahoma State quarterback Mason Rudolph. Now, Rudolph is labeled as a second-round pick quarterback, but with a team that has 2 first-round picks, essentially, you know, it's a reach to an extent, but not. For a team that needs a quarterback, that they have the luxury of him sitting. Meanwhile, A.J. McCarron tries to prove himself. Meanwhile, Nate Peterman also tries to redeem himself. I like the idea of having Mason Rudolph in the building, 6'5", 240 pounds, the best deep ball in this class, one of the more polished passers in this draft, I would say. And I definitely think maybe why he's not getting as much credit as the Darnolds and Rosens of the world. He didn't play the competition that they did, but he did have a great college career. So I'm going to go with Mason Rudolph at 22. That allows Buffalo to get the number 1 wide receiver that they need and the quarterback that they can eventually turn to. Carlton Davis to New England, corner. I got them going after Carlton Davis with Malcolm Butler gone. They need to redeem themselves in that area. Mike Hughes going 24th to Carolina. Darius Leonard going 25th to Tennessee. Darius Leonard, I really like. I think he's a pretty solid player. Darius Leonard. Let me pull up something about him real quick here. Darius Leonard, outside linebacker, South Carolina State University. I really like his length, but I could see him more as a safety. But you look at, at that conference, South Carolina State, the MEAC, as I call it, he shut down Tarek Cohen in that conference, and that definitely helps. 26, Maurice Hurst out of Michigan. There are some questions about a heart murmur, but I've heard everything's all systems go. 27th overall. You thought this guy would sneak out of the first round of the draft, but it's not going to happen. I have the New Orleans Saints getting the heir apparent to Drew Brees, and that would be Lamar Jackson. 28th overall, Ronnie Harrison out of Bama. 29th overall, Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle to Jacksonville. 30th overall, Mike McGlinchey falls for unbeknownst reasons. We got to hope for the best. We got to hope that, whatever happens, happens, and I'll support the Bills no matter what. Take care, everybody.